When a massive killer whale became stranded on a New Zealand beach, dozens of people surrounded the creature. What happened next left everyone on that beach completely speechless as they witnessed something none of them expected to see in their lifetime. The sun had barely risen over Marlborough Beach, New Zealand, when local residents encountered an alarming sight. There, sprawled across the sand, lay an enormous orca, its black and white body glistening in the early light. The gravity of the situation was immediately apparent. This killer whale was now helpless on land. Word spread quickly through the small coastal community, and people knew they had to act fast. As calls for help went out, more onlookers gathered on the beach, their faces a mix of concern and disbelief. Interestingly, this wasn't the first orca sighting in recent days. Just yesterday, beachgoers had been thrilled to see a pod of orcas hunting close to shore. These weren't small animals. Each orca was as long as a school bus. The group moved together like a well-trained swimming team. Some dived deep, while others stayed near the surface. They were probably hunting for fish, bringing the orcas close to shore. People stopped to watch them, and kids pointed at the water as the orcas showed off their swimming skills. The orcas stayed near the beach for several hours, and as the sun set, they swam back to deeper water. The beach visitors went home thinking they'd seen something special. No one could have guessed that one of these orcas would be fighting for survival on the beach the following day. The local community quickly became attached to the stranded orca and called her Lucy. This wasn't just any sea animal. Orcas are among the smartest animals on Earth. Their brains are large and complex, similar to dolphins and chimpanzees. They can solve problems and remember things for many years. Orcas are such good hunters that scientists call them the wolves of the sea. They work in groups to catch food, sharing techniques with the younger ones in their pod. They are known to create waves to knock seals off ice floes, and even beach themselves on purpose to catch prey, but only in places where they know they can slide back into deeper water. So, how did such a smart animal end up stranded? The answer likely lay in the tricky coastal waters. When orcas hunt, they focus intensely on their prey. Lucy might have chased a fish into the shallows, not realizing how quickly the water level was decreasing. The changing tides could have trapped her, pushing her further onto the beach. Even with all their intelligence, orcas can't read tide charts or predict how sandbanks shift under the waves. However, the how was less pressing than the what now. Could Lucy be saved? This huge animal was built for swimming in deep ocean waters, but now she was stuck on dry land. In the ocean, orcas are some of the strongest animals alive. They can swim faster than Olympic champions and dive deeper than submarines. But Lucy couldn't use any of these abilities on the beach. As the morning went on, things got worse for the killer whale. The sun rose higher, shining down on her skin. Orcas have dark skin that absorbs heat quickly. This isn't a problem in the ocean because the water keeps them cool, but on the beach it meant Lucy was getting hotter. More and more people kept coming to the beach. Each person who arrived asked the same question. Asterisk, asterisk. How can we help asterisk, asterisk? The people knew they had to work fast. They formed a plan to keep the orca alive until they could figure out how to get her back into the ocean. Some folks ran to their homes and came back with buckets. They filled these buckets with seawater and poured it over the orca's body. This helped in two ways. It kept her skin wet and cool, and it reminded her body of being in the ocean. Other people brought large sheets and towels, soaked them in seawater, and draped them over her body. As the hours passed, Lucy's condition got worse. Orcas have smooth, rubbery skin that needs to stay wet. Lucy's skin began to dry out, even with people constantly pouring water over her. Her breathing changed too. At first, she had been breathing steadily, but as time went on, her breaths became faster and more shallow. It looked like she was working harder to get air. Her eyes changed as well. Orcas have big, expressive eyes that seem almost human-like. When Lucy first stranded, her eyes were alert, and she looked around at the people. But now, they started to look dull and unfocused. It was as if she was too tired to notice what was happening around her. Seeing Lucy get worse made everyone work even harder. Those who had come to the beach just to watch now joined in to help. Some grabbed buckets and joined the line of people bringing water from the ocean. Others helped hold the wet sheets in place to keep the sun off her. Kids helped too. Some make trips back and forth to nearby stores, bringing bottles of water for the volunteers to drink. Others helped organize the supplies people brought, making sure everything was easy to find when needed. The rescuers knew they needed a better plan. They couldn't just keep pouring water on Lucy forever. She needed to get back into the ocean, and soon. But how could they move something so heavy? An adult orca can weigh as much as 6 tons, about the same as a large elephant or a big truck. No matter how strong or hard the people pushed, they couldn't move Lucy back into the water by themselves. Their first plan seemed promising. A local fishing boat offered to help tow Lucy back to sea. The idea was simple. Attach ropes to the boat, wrap them carefully around Lucy, and pull her into deeper water. The boat captain was ready, and the ropes were in place. However, nature had other ideas. The sea wasn't calm that day. Waves kept crashing against the shore, pushing the boat back every time it tried to get close enough. The captain tried 3 different approaches, but the waves forced him to pull back each time. If the boat got too close to shore, it might also get stuck on the sand, causing 2 problems instead of 1. The ropes were another issue. Lucy's skin, usually protected by water, was sensitive. The ropes might cut into her, like a tight rubber band around your finger. Even if they managed to position the boat perfectly, pulling her could cause serious harm. No one was willing to take that risk. After the boat plan failed, the team moved on to their second idea. Someone suggested digging a channel in the sand, like a small river leading from Lucy to the ocean. The plan made sense. Create a path where water could flow and help Lucy float. 20 people grabbed shovels and started digging. But the sand wouldn't cooperate. As fast as they dug, the sides of the channel collapsed, filling it back in. It was like trying to dig a hole at the beach near the water. The sand kept sliding back. They tried making the channel wider, but the same thing kept happening. Even in the sections where they managed to keep the channel open, they faced a bigger problem. The water flowing through wasn't strong enough to help move Lucy. Both rescue attempts failed, but these failures taught the team something important. They couldn't fight against nature. They needed to work with it. This realization made the team devise their final plan: wait for the high tide. This made the most sense. The water would help lift Lucy's weight when the tide rose naturally. Meanwhile, they could keep her skin wet and cool. Once the water got deep enough, Lucy could use her strength to swim. This plan was safer and worked with nature instead of against it. Time was running out, though. The longer Lucy stayed on land, the more dangerous it became for her. But there was another big worry. Orcas live in families called pods, and they never leave each other. A pod is like a super close family that stays together their whole lives. The mom, dad, brothers, sisters, and even grandparents all swim together, hunt together, and protect each other. They even have their own special sounds they use to talk to each other, like their own secret language. Lucy's family was probably swimming somewhere nearby in the deeper water, waiting and calling for her. Orcas get really upset when they can't be with their pod. The rescue team could see how worried Lucy was. Sometimes she would make sounds, probably trying to call back to her family. This is why everyone was working so fast. They knew Lucy needed to get back to her pod soon. Some of the rescue team experts also knew that if they could get Lucy back to deep water, her pod would help her. Orcas are known to support sick or hurt family members, swimming close to them and even pushing them up to the surface to breathe if they need help. But first, they had to get Lucy off the beach. If their plan didn't work, Lucy might never see her family again. However, as the hours dragged on, it became clear that the whale was giving up. Once frequently moving, her body grew still as she tried to right herself. Her breathing became shallow. The crowd watched in anguished silence, many wiping away tears. It seemed that despite their best efforts, they would witness a tragedy. Then, as the tide began to come in, the first waves reached Lucy's tail. Suddenly, there was movement. Her tail twitched. This small sign told everyone that Lucy wasn't giving up. She'd have been conserving her energy, waiting for the water to return. The rescue team saw their chance. As more water flowed around Lucy, they began to gently rock her body. This motion helped the water flow underneath her and showed her which way led to deeper water. Orcas can sense water movement, and Lucy could feel which direction would take her back to the ocean. At first, nothing seemed to change. The team kept steady with their rocking motion. Then, slowly, Lucy began to respond. She started moving with the water's flow, using her tail to test the best way forward. She wasn't thrashing or panicking. She was working with the rescuers, using the incoming tide to help lift her body. This careful coordination between Lucy and the rescue team showed exactly why orcas are called some of the smartest animals in the ocean. Most wild animals would panic if humans tried to touch them, but not Lucy. She seemed to know that all these people on the beach were trying to save her life. When the rescuers pushed gently on one side, she moved that way. When they guided her toward deeper water, she tried to follow their lead. It was as if she could understand what they wanted her to do. The volunteers, now waist-deep in the surf, pushed and pulled, trying to guide her toward freedom. It was exhausting and dangerous work. One wrong move could result in injury from the whale's powerful flukes. But no one was willing to give up. Finally, after several hours, Lucy reached a depth where she could swim freely. There was a moment of tense silence as everyone waited to see what would happen next. The whale floated for a moment, seemingly unsure. Then, with a powerful stroke of her tail, she surged forward. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, many embracing each other in joy and relief. But the orca wasn't done surprising them. Instead of immediately swimming out to sea, she circled back, approaching the shore where the volunteers stood. For a heart-stopping moment, some feared she might beach herself again. But she stopped short, her dorsal fin cutting through the water as she swam parallel to the beach. As everyone watched, she did something amazing. She launched her entire body out of the water, spinning in midair. This move, called braching, is something orcas do to communicate with each other. Lucy's leap wasn't just for show. She was telling her rescuers, and her pod, that she was okay. When an orca breaches, they use their powerful tail to push themselves entirely out of the water. For Lucy to do this, after being stranded, showed how much strength she had regained. Each leap sent water splashing everywhere, like a giant cannonball at a pool. The crowd gasped and cheered with each jump. Lucy breached 3 times, each jump like a victory celebration. Orcas are among the few animals known to celebrate and play just because they're happy. They're also among the only animals, besides humans, who teach their young ones how to play. Lucy was showing everyone a perfect example of orca joy. After her jumps, Lucy started swimming toward deeper water. Her movements showed everyone this wasn't just luck. She knew exactly where she was going. Orcas have an internal compass that helps them navigate the ocean. They can remember routes and locations for years, passing this knowledge down through their pod. As Lucy swam further out, people could see her tall dorsal fin cutting through the water. A dorsal fin can be as tall as a grown person, and each orca's fin is slightly different, like a fingerprint. The crowd watched until they couldn't see her fin anymore, knowing she was heading back to her family pod. As the adrenaline of the rescue faded, the reality of what they had accomplished began to sink in. Strangers hugged, laughed, and cried together. They had united as a community and saved a life against incredible odds. In the days that followed, the story of the orca's rescue spread far beyond the shores of Marlborough Beach. It made national news and then international news. Marine biologists studied the incident, amazed by the whale's apparent understanding and cooperation during the rescue. From a dire situation on a New Zealand beach to a triumphant return to the ocean, this orca's story is a testament to the extraordinary things that can happen when people come together to help an animal in need. It's a reminder that sometimes the most incredible moments in life are the ones we never saw coming.